107. Be satisfied. Be stable in peace and happiness. Because satisfaction is the worthy asset. Permanent wealth gives highest level of happiness. It is better to pass our lives with a sense of satisfaction instead of being a slave of habits. Satisfaction is the root of peace. Faith brings satisfaction. Satisfaction is great work in poverty and solvency. Be practice satisfaction of mind. Be learned to satisfy at all situation. Person with satisfaction is welfare from all corner. Be pleased existence. Nothing is more than peace and health like satisfying with little. A good person is pleased with ordinary things. Wise person are pleased at every stage in the world. That person is capable of status who is satisfied with little food, laugh a little and satisfied with eligible wares. To be habituated to wear good wares, to take best meals and a little satisfaction at each object. Because a principality cannot establish without little satisfaction. Little satisfaction are patience with hungry and to take nakedness while not having wares. Happiness with little satisfaction are wealthy. Giving importance to a trifle matter and considering as great to a small matter is the symptom of richness. He is really happy who is satisfied at all stages. Abundance of material cannot be called as asset. Mental satisfaction is the most precious characteristic of a person. Be wealthy cannot depend on asset but depends on satisfaction of mind. The man who is only financially rich is not rich, but a man who is mentally rich is a rich man in fact. Natural pleasure is one's own perceptible. So absence of these condition nothing happens, but it is useless to get or know natural pleasure by theories. Natural pleasure is beyond our sense organs. A far-sighted man always remains firm. It is better to live a cottage with full of peace. There is no successfulness to live in big building with dissatisfaction. Those people who are never be pleased they will not be pleased to lie at the soft bed. Not be displeased for anything except fresh water in the world. While death is whose unbreakable fate a little bread, fresh water and place of lying is most achievement for him. Whether everything is under fate then be satisfied at all level. Who feels uneasy at one place feels same everywhere. Each people has to be pleased as per self-conception. Who enjoys by providing assistance, pain of not getting cannot touch him. Satisfy your beloved, do not displeased. Try to please other with what you have. Be try to do happy all be pleased which you do have. It is easy to be pleased the ignorant, the more is easy to the wise persons. But it is hard to please a pride little known, likely interestless ignorant cannot be pleased. Dissatisfaction a ignorant never by vices, a woman never feels satisfied in intercourse ornaments and giving birth, a mediator never by preaching sermon, an honorable man by honors, a disgusted man by prayers, a hero by showing heroism, an orator by delivering a speech, a politician by counseling, a wise man by serving in association, a donor by donation and a scholar by giving advices. A pious man is never fully satisfied even after visiting enormous holy places. Complete satisfaction is achieved in the absence of sorrow and if desired things are obtained. Dissatisfaction can turn into satisfaction only through arduous endeavor and passion. Satisfaction must be achieved through one's own wife, food and money. But satisfaction is not desired in case of study, recitation and active giving. In our futile life, knowledge about reality and truth and achieving satisfaction are the main objectives. Man can never achieve absolute contentment. We take birth in lack of gratification and also die with the same lot. Diseaseful and dissatisfied are generally unhappy. Unhappy people neither have any hope nor any frustration. Man thinks himself unhappy, because he always reckons his frustration. One who thinks himself unhappy or sick among all is the unhappiest or sickest being. A sick person's mind is busy with sick thoughts. Education elevates man whereas illness paralyzes the man mentally. Live your daily life and be contented with what you get around you. We should be contented with what we have, not with what we cannot be. It is wise to keep contented at what we have got, not to reckon what is beyond reach. Man like to keep account of his grief, but never of his pleasure. If he does calculate any time, he will see that amount of happiness and sorrow is equal. Just keep account of pleasure, then there will be no grief over deprivation. We hardly think what we have. Most of our thoughts involve what we have not. Enjoy your life without comparing it with others. We compare ourselves with those who are better than us. But we could be satisfied if we compared ourselves with those who are inferior to us. Life should be made as like a nice play. This drama should be played well, for that good actors are needed. If you don't pursue the path of joy, you will inevitably meet the destruction. Forget the sign of misery, the pathetic sadness. It is better to take the guise of a fool for enjoyment, than same for miser. Deserts extends. It is bad luck who contains own self only desert within not any oasis. Happiness becomes enjoying by giving joy to other. The goal of life is obtaining successive pleasure. According to the utilitarian, good is pleasure and bad is pain. At present men have one kind of woe, that's name is vexation, as if there is no redemption from it. Whereas, if we are able to get the lesson of re-chewing from the cow, then there will have the success of acquiring knowledge. Joy wants eternity, returning back as it is in the same form. Cause of ruin arises out of excessive satisfaction and desire. A good man remains contented with simple belongings. A contented man has no ruin at all. If you have a contented mind, then it is you who can enjoy life. An honest man is always completely satisfied. One who does not have money, food and satisfaction lacks 3 friends. You have enough for your own. Such knowledge is lifelong abundance. Satisfaction of mind is greater than physique. If you have satisfied mind, then you can enjoy life fully. He is contented who is satisfied at his luck. Be contented at the daily bread allotted to you from Allah. Do not greedy to other property, and thus you can be free from heartburning. If you think what you have got is trifle, then your grief will never go if you are awarded with the whole world. Mind is a stomach, the origin of source for joy. But a life infected with the ill stomach turned to poison. Life turned to the tools of tired wishes. The worldly wave takes him floating away. Knowledge makes men tired, it has no justification, so don't ye wish for it, because everything is worthless. The degree of self-satisfaction is greater in the ignorant than in the wise. It may be said with regard to cheerfulness or jovial temperament that as much as we please to spend these, they are left in larger amount. A foreign country, however prosperity it provides, cannot provide faith and contentment. We get happiness but not peace and relief in a foreign country. Man can never be satisfied in a society which is not as his liking. One whose mind is a sensitive one cannot achieve happiness. Contentment cannot be earned where the question of self-interest is involved. One who remains contented with little, he never faces ruin. Fascination for limited property is more painful than dire poverty, because a huge greed creates a huge want. One who possesses the nectar named satisfaction can obtain happiness and peace. The intuition born out of fulfilling fundamental wants gives proper pleasure to both mind and the body. Pleasure arises when something larger is achieved at the expense of something smaller. Appropriate pleasure is obtained if any work is performed properly without wishing any benefit therefrom. Pleasure is completely derived in self-restraint, self-control, animal harmlessness and righteousness. Meditation of amity, kindness, delight, lack of care, etc. can provide right kind of pleasure. Pleasure is the source of subject matter, objective aim in all creations related to this. One can derive pleasure to one's liking if one tries at most. Anything trifle may prove enough for gaining pleasure. Build up a merry environment with just the elements you have in hand. The right to enjoyment or happiness is a fundamental one, since human life is short and man dies alone. Let me drink the ever pleasure the earth can provide. Because life is nothing but too short. Grab every moment for enjoying it, for making merriment and pleasure. Stretch your hands to pick up merriment where you can have it. Fill folds of your garment. Life is for once, not for twice. Then you will see that life has not become dull. It does not cost always to get pleasure and happiness. We should know the art of making an environment of delight and happiness. To derive handsome pleasure, experience is a must. It cannot be predicted about in which a man feels pleasure. Enjoyment of pleasure is totally a matter of personal likes and dislike. Pleasure comes from satisfaction of desires which works as a background. A new bride, a new book, new dress, old shoes cause a great deal of delight. I feel pleasure in changes. So my pleasure is not static. One who knows how to give pleasure has not to face grief. We can satisfy our needs with energy, can derive pleasure through salvation. But spirit and salvation with regard to pleasure apart. The incest relation with this pleasure is desire. Pleasure does not respond to any force, it involves only desires and joy. Ecstasy is a portion of overall pleasure. An elated person lives a long life. I will rather wear the look of a stupid to keep me cheerful than experience anything that may give me sorrow. Fear is the great enemy for pleasure. Careful pleasure is dull. A child gets pleasure in showing his toys to other, whereas grown-up man keeps the same hidden. This pleasure of adolescence which is like a king are full of smile. Pleasure and sleep is the great medicine for all kinds of agony. To control knowledge in accordance with the nature is a virtue. Pleasant life is the rule of nature. Pleasure is the intention of all our efforts. It is a prominent feature of nature to inspire man to help each other so as to ensure happiness for all. All must be restrained so that no single individual look for advantage in such a way that others fall in disadvantages. It is wise to keep an eye to personal comfort in the midst of adversities. Great well-being comes at the expense of trifle gifts and sacrifices. Spirit of well-being mixed with memory of grateful love and generosity brings greater pleasures in mind. Pleasure is both physical and self-centered. The soul drives pleasure out of practices of intelligence and truth. Added to it are sweet memories of past life ennobled by honesty. Sensual pleasure is felt from simple and elevated state of body and from happiness felt by senses. Who is in perfect health devoid of such life as mixture of mourn and sorrow, and life without the least trace of pain is greatest pleasure, and such pleasure is the foundation of all pleasures. If we like to get pleasure, then we must accept any break in pleasure. Pain and pleasure come by turns like darkness and light. Gathering of all pleasures at the same hours leads to ruin the pleasures like a fruit. Melancholy is the greatest end of pleasure. Life consists in pleasure, whereas melancholy detaches man from life. Pleasure has comrades, whereas sorrow is lonely. Pleasure cannot be called pleasure in full sense if there is absence of the little out of break of rule. Delight is not a routine, easy and informal matter. Sometimes it may prolong for a whole day, and one should take some efforts to maintain it. The main factor of pleasure is the excitement created by the friction of mentality and efforts to be relieved from it. The present happiness can be sweeter more by remembering past sorrows. Any deep pleasure comes from a deep sorrow. No light pleasure or grief can affect a mind widely. If the life would have been free-form happiness and unhappiness, it would have become charmless. But life is not so. None of our lives are such. The most pleasing experience of life is the clean and simple occurrences. That pleasure is the real pleasure which comes to us crossing the way of grief. Pleasure is a fruit which is rare in undeveloped countries. No nation dies for want of food, but they really die for want of pleasure. Express yourself like your neighbors and remain happy. A man can enjoy fully with them who are of his same age. A roaster is always cheerful. Whatsoever tiny matter it finds will announce its cheerfulness with wonderful physical posture. The pleasure of understanding something is the greatest pleasure. Pleasure is a state of mind when we do not feel any mental pressure. There is no pleasure without love and laugh. Pleasure controls a day and love controls a night. The smallest pleasures are the sweetest ones. Habit of reading is the only pleasures in which there is no impurity. When all pleasure go away, this pleasure remains. Not soul, gods, planets, deeds and time, but one's mental attitude is the main cause of his happiness and unhappiness. Body is the source of all kinds of happiness. Physical happiness is the mental happiness. All mental happiness are nothing but physical sensations. Sensational happiness is the heaven and suffering is the hell. Contentment of soul is heavenly and the suffering of depriving oneself is the hell. Happiness and peace are abstract matter. Where there is abundance of material gains but want of humanly qualities, happiness is absent there. Happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is greater and realistic than in its definition. A man's happiness and pleasure depend on himself. It depends on how he accepts it. Because happiness is not free from practical sufferings. In fact, there is no separate subject named happiness. Pleasure, happiness, peace etc. are nothing but mental status. In fact, it is only a self-realization which comes from peace of mind and cheerfulness. The first and foremost precondition of happiness is self-contentment. It completely depends on an individual that getting what and leaving what he will get contentment. Happiness is that what you think about it. Happiness does not depend on any material factor. Think for the future and do your present duties properly. If you want to be happy, you are to keep your mind calm and quiet and your soul stable. You are to be satisfied with your status. If you want happiness, you are to convert all your negative attitudes into positive ones. Only then you will find that this world itself is the heaven. Happiness and unhappiness are the two sides of the same coin. Happiness can't be felt in absence of unhappiness. One is understood by the other. All the happiness, sins and virtues of human beings are the situations occur in this world itself. Happiness and peace of a man depend on his mental state. Many small happiness are the obstacles for a greater happiness. A man habituated to enjoy trifling happiness, misunderstands the real happiness. Because there are many things which are not pleasing by nature, rather they are mostly involved with sorrow and repentance. Still the illusion of its perverted and harmful fascination and uncontrollable and dishonest addition are so strong that to some people it seems to be too much pleasant. Even it seems to be the essential factor of their lives. As a man feels pleasure when he hides his wealth and becomes free from worry. Suppose his wealth has been stolen and the thief could not be identified and after a few days, the wealthy man die. But if the wealth would not have been stolen till the death of its owner it would make no difference at all. He who is free from a sense of enjoyment is also free from sexual desire and as such he is calm and happy. But those who are having sexual desire and at the same time wants to attain spiritual success are having a restless and inattentive mentality. A man having no sexual desire can reach the final goal of spiritualism. To whom religion, wealth, sex, salvation and all other matters like these are very negligible. Happiness and satisfaction come after much trouble. We are to find out the causes harmful to happiness and then we are to remove it. Less speaking, limited eating and a mind free from worries are the key to happiness. A man's belly is master of happiness. Happiness always remains in a man's mind. Both happiness and unhappiness are the conditions of a man's mind. He who can maintain the same state of mind in the states of happiness or unhappiness, becomes a really happy man. An intelligent person only can enjoy a well-balanced happiness forever. Humanly happiness means the happiness recognized by wisdom. To desire for happiness after deserving it is the inflated condition of being happy. Happiness lies with the creative application of powers. Where there is more scope and flourish the personality, happiness and peace of people are also more there. Present happiness is the full-fledged happiness. Happiness of the past and the future that is memory and imagination are less imparting than the present happiness. To win on surrounding by self-control, feudality and judiciousness is happiness. Happiness or peace is the ultimate desire of human life. Friendship and sympathy are specially helpful for establishing peace and happiness. Sense of happiness is variable from person to person. If you sacrifice your physical enjoyment and become mentally happy it is beneficial for you. The happiness free from other mercy is the real happiness. Sense of happiness is the image of a man's soul. The main source of happiness, peace, pleasure and laughter is money. Money is the root of all kinds of happiness. When a man's mind reigns on him, he can make his happiness himself, but when his wealth takes over this duty, his mind does not have any duty in this regard. There the mental happiness is replaced by materials, furniture, preparation, etc. Then only materials are gained in lack of happiness. Happiness does not depend on bank balance, but it depends on mental balance. Only a nice environment can give one a heavenly happiness. Only a one kind of happiness becomes crippled like a ring-broken bird, but he gets a variety of happiness who gets delight touching the flying birds. Peace is greater than happiness. Relaxation is better than happiness. Relaxation is the state between happiness and peace. It is far better to be a bird than to be a kite. A peaceful home is far better than a happy home. A wise eye is far better than a powerful eye. We should not keep on thinking about our happiness and unhappiness. Happiness will come and go away, and unhappiness will also follow the same process. Cycling of happiness and unhappiness is the law of nature. Those who worry about it never find out happiness. In most of the cases, a man's happiness depends on himself. If somebody wants to be happy, he should share it with others. Nobody can enjoy happiness alone. The most secret theory of happiness is to sacrifice. When somebody can control his desires, he can be happy. There is no happiness like curtailing one's demands. That is the real happiness. Pomp, grandeur and noise are the enemies of a real happiness. Firstly, a sense of happiness grows within a person himself, and secondly, he shares it with a few of his selected friends. In fact, happiness is an illusion, which does not exist in the forest but within a man's mind. There is no material named happiness. It is to be created within our minds. Everybody's happiness depends on his mentality. A sense of happiness and peace are the cosmetics for beautifying a man's personality. A man is really happy when he thinks that he does not need more happiness. Our happiness fully depends on our liberty. They are winners who are delightful. Winning and happiness are co-shares, as they are twins. Those who are liberal to their closest ones, kind to their subordinates, clever with the clever, love honest persons, honest to the superiors, sincere to the teachers, courageous with the enemies, courteous and tolerant to the elderly persons, talkative to the woman, self-controlled in sexual affairs, controls himself from killing others and acquiring their properties, can be happy. Happiness does not depend on men and materials, but it depends on our attitude towards men and materials. There is nothing fully good or bad. Those who are always happy or unhappy are leading a monotonous life. To be fully contented means to be fully finished, which stops progress. And it makes a man mentally old. If anybody thinks himself full-fledged at any status, becomes mentally downfall. Happiness is like a sand house in a seashore, which can be washed away at any moment by a tidal soar. What you have, who you are, where you are, or what you are doing, don't determine your happiness or unhappiness. Worrying about where a man should have been is the cause of greater mental suffering than worrying about where he is. Happiness is a particular state of mind. A man's heart is contented either by enjoyment, sacrifice, tolerance or love. A man suffers for his unjustified acts in ignorance, and happiness lies in virtue and wisdom only. One can be happy if he enjoys sex without encumbering religion or his profession. Success or happiness are of various nature. The sensation of happiness out of meeting a practical need is called biological satisfaction. Everybody in the world is searching for happiness, and there is a certain way to find it out. That means happiness does not depend on practical situations excluding your mental status. It depends on your mental attitude. Happiness is what you think about it. Definition of happiness varies from person to person. Happiness increases the longevity of life and energy as well. He who leads an easy and simple life, the real happiness is easily available to him. A wise man never searches for happiness but wants to get rid of suffering. There is no happiness greater than satisfaction from a little, and there is no greater asset than a good health. A man himself is the architect of his own happiness. Happiness will never come if you keep on saying "I want happiness" again and again. Efforts are needed to attain happiness. A man is the chief architect of his happiness and fate. He who is more wise is more unhappy. Less wise people become more happy. If somebody talks or acts cheerfully and innocently, happiness will always follow him like his shadow. Expression of a soul's feelings through well-controlled works is the happiness. As simple life brings more happiness and peace. Satisfaction with one's own status and being free from unnecessary wants is a source of unlimited happiness and peace. Happiness mainly depends on four things. Those are a sound health, financial solvency, a beautiful wife, and a life free from worries. He who is obeyed by his son, subordinates and wife and remains satisfied in need, even the world is like heaven to him. Daily income, a sound health, a sweet-spoken wife, an obedient son and an education-based profession are the 6 sources of happiness in the world. Nobody is there who has become fully happy after fulfillment of all his desires. He who always remains silent while eating, becomes happy like living in heaven for millions of years. He who keeps on running after wealth cannot be happy. A restless man can never be happy anywhere. Good association and good words are the sources of happiness. Any physical and mental happiness is very temporary. Only the good deeds bring happiness in the world. We become worried when we find that everything is very temporary in the world. We can remain always cheerful if we can create a mentality of perceiving everything to be a good one with a mentality of sacrifice, greedlessness and self-control. A man remains cheerful if he neglects conservatism and prejudices. Happiness and unhappiness come from human behaviors as well as materials. Courageous, memorious, leave own consciousness such permanent comfort due to realize when, how, what is producing in mind with his wise inner sight. Eyes, ears, sex organs, nose, mouth, skins and other sensational organs receive all external stimulators and send them to the brain, which is justified by the ideas of a man's experiences and enter heart through positive, negativities and neutral attitudes of mind. At this stage, for the sake of mental peace, a man feels happy with his positive mental attitude. He who can tackle any obstacle firmly and with his ready wit can be happy. And he ruins who remains inactive, showing the excuse of luck. Sense of crime, mental sufferings, envy, selfishness, cowardness and worries are the obstacles for happiness. You can remain cheerful if you are ashamed of your sins, afraid of sins and don't allow the thought of sin ever for a moment to remain in your mind. He remains out of the sight of devil, who moves, takes rest, sits and sleeps, being free from all worries. He becomes well-wishers of all creatures, remains away from illegitimate sexual affairs, does not want exchange of anything, remains satisfied with limited fooding and clothing and can move freely anywhere he likes. In this way, he controls his sense organs and enjoys a spiritual, continuous, unperturbed and full-fledged happiness. He purifies his heart, leaving greed, fascination, sexual tendency, anger, sleeping tendency and physical and mental infirmity. Remember that you won't have to reborn if you can become free from sexual tendency, greed and ignorance. In fact, happiness is a particular mental state. You can be happy if you pretend to be happy. A creature does not have anything happier than being physically sound. Firstly, happiness depends on physical soundness. The first precondition for a sound health is to be happy. Be ethical, you will be happy. It is not wise to think that we can be happy through skill in our profession. He is the happiest man who has blessed with a sense of satisfaction from a little and have a virtuous wife. Cheerfulness, benevolence and calmness are the characteristics of a happy man. Anybody who can accept any of the said qualities in the way prescribed can be happy. Be satisfied with your status and think that you are happy. At least pretend to be happy. Then you will surely be happy. He is the happy who thinks so. This is a universal truth. It is possible to be happy only by thinking oneself happy with full faith and sincerity. Happiness is a feeling, sensation or realization which is a matter of supposition or thinking. It is important to think oneself to be happy. That's all. You can be happy in this way. You are to convince your mind that you are happy. control of thinking and acting as happy help a man to become so much happy as much he wants. He is the happiest man who thinks himself should be a happy man. None can be happy if he does not think that he is happy. The greatest, easiest and the only way to happiness is to think oneself should be happy. You can be happy if you can pretend should be fully delightful. The world seems to be a combination of happiness and unhappiness to those who cannot win their minds. We shall remain slaves of others till we shall want other to make us happy. Nobody else but yourself is regained to make you happy. Everything in the world is dependent on some other things. The material world is neutral, the real and clean happiness remains in our minds. Only he can be happy who can master on his mind. Unknown to all and remaining free from worldly disturbances are the sources of happiness. He is really happy who is free from worries, sense of honor and dishonor and greed for material gains. He is really contented and happy who has no complaint against anybody or anything. You should make others happy for the sake of your happiness. Happiness is contagious. We get back what we give to others. That is why believers keep on telling about various positive matters. A happy man is 1,000 times more active than a frustrated man. A person can survive and can be happy by making a sufficient balance between his requirements and his capability to meet the requirements. In this world only they are happy who do not have any material desire and who are satisfied with a little. A man who is physically and mentally fully free is a full-fledged happy man. Happy men are steady and calm. They carry their happiness carefully. They are like a glass jar fully filled up, which will break down with a slight hit. The easiest way to be happy is not to worry about happiness and unhappiness. You can be happy in any situation if you get a like-minded partner. Then you can laugh open-heartedly. Those who can grow crops of happiness in the field of mind, they only become happy, only they can laugh open-heartedly. The best way of ensuring future happiness is to feel happy for today as much as it is justified. Only he can be called a happy man who says, "It is sufficient for me that I am alive today. Let tomorrow bring for me a deep darkness of disaster, but I won't be afraid today for that." A happy man does not worry about his past or future but lives in his present. 90% of our lives are all right and the rest 10% is wrong. If we want to be happy we should remain busy with the 90% and to avoid the 10%. One is to make his happiness by himself. It is a wrong notion that somebody else will make you happy. Nobody can make somebody happy if he wants. Feeling of happiness is a personal matter. A man becomes happy when he gets what he wants. Thousands of other things cannot satisfy him. Good health and weak memory only can make a man happy. He is the happy man who has been able to make a woman happy. Generally a happy man is mentally broad. If a sinner becomes happy it is understood that he does not have any more tendency of crime. There are two ways of being happy, those are to increase income and to decrease expenditures. If you want to be happy, you are to be powerful in having a protesting attitude. One can't be happy if he does not desire it, and wealth is not only the source of happiness. You are to be happy with what you have. Aim of life of everybody is to be happy, to be satisfied, which is possible through self-realization. A man may convince to believe something by reasoning, but nobody can be happy by doing something against his will. The less you will want the more you will get, the more you want the less you will get. If you don't remember this basic theory of happiness you will never be happy. He is really happy who does not expect more than his need. There is only one way to be happy, that is not to worry about anything which is beyond our reach. He is the happy man whose spouse is made of affection, sympathy and virtues, covered by wealth, finished by beauty and desired by honor. There is nobody happy like him, like who can't think everybody is his nearest one.